All right, Steve Wood, recovered alcoholic. Welcome to the Great Rally Book Study on Thursday night. And looking forward to this. So we're still knee deep in step one. And last week we talked about um, we got in the chapter that there's a solution. And we talked about one thing I mentioned is if you take basic math and you say 5 times 5 is 25, and you ask a group what the solution is, they all say 25. That's the answer. And then they'll say 5 times 5. That's the problem. What's the solution? Multiplication. It's the method we use to bring us to the answer. That's what we're looking at here. What's the method we use to bring us to the answer? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. But there's some pretty deep messages last week about having, just sharing on a common problem. It's just one element in cement. How many elements are in cement, right? But it's one element in the cement of our foundation. And that alone would never hold us together as we are now joined. And how are they joined? Common solution, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So it's a warning in there. You just can't just go to meetings and talk about the problem. We've been doing that our whole life. This is getting down to business. And we talked about, the alcoholics, all the lives that are engulfed because of this, lots of harms. So we're going to jump right back onto page 19 where we left off last week. And we're going to cover some of my favorite stuff and some controversial stuff. Controversial is good. So page 19. Give me one second. There you go. Page 19 says, we have concluded to publish an anonymous volume setting forth the problem as we see it. We shall bring to the task our combined experience and knowledge. This suggests a useful program for anyone concerned with a drinking problem. Of necessity, we're going to be discussion of matters medical, psychiatric, social, and religious. We are aware that these matters are from their very nature controversial. Nothing would please us so much to write a book that would contain no basis for contentment or argument. And good luck. We shall do our utmost to achieve that ideal. So they're saying their ideal is something that is, it's more than a goal. You use your goals to reach your ideal, but your ideal is something that's within you, which within you is an aim. And their aim is to write a book that has no content or no argument. Most of us sense that real tolerance of other people's shortcomings and viewpoints and a respect of their opinions are attitudes which which makes us more useful to others. It's interesting what he says there. Most of us sense that real tolerance. So he's not saying, opinions make us useful. He says tolerance of other people's shortcomings and viewpoints and a respect for their opinions are attitudes which make us more useful than others. Very important. So the word controversial is mentioned in there. And controversial means something of a disputed nature, opposing views, an opinion, an idea that isn't generally agreed upon. Some people can't see it. And what happens is that they lead to arguments and debate, called disagreements. And my spiritual advisor told me many years ago, the second you open the second after you have a spiritual awakening, the second after you open your mouth in a meeting and start speaking the solution, you become instantly controversial. I was like, what? In AA? Yes, you do. Because think about it, back when I was doing hopscotch recovery, jumping around doing nothing, I would think those damn book thumpers, they don't know nothing. because they're speaking controversial stuff. They're talking about stuff about about coming back to life. It's not just the words, you know, there. It's not just the words like must and stuff like that. Because we know the solution. We are controversial because we don't share the same experiences as other people. It's not their fault. They're not where we're at. That's why we don't condemn them or chase them away. And many of them, the truth, have no desire to ever do the steps. So they think we're full of crap. You know, it is bad that is it bad we come across controversial? No, because when something is controversial, you demanded someone's attention. But it also means which means they're listening. You affect them in some way. And the big book is controversial because it's about radical change and transformation. That's one of the reasons why I got bad reviews at first. The big book got tons of bad reviews, religious extortion and psychobabble and everything people said. But Bill mentioned four important things here: medical, psychiatric, social, and religious. Now, let's look at those words. First, let's look at the medical. Let's see where these are. I'm going to mention, where the book crosses this stuff, right? So medical is a diagnosis and treatment of, to prevention of disease. That's at least what they tell us nowadays. I don't think it really goes that way. Illness, injury, the study and practice of medicine. What part of the book is medical? Doctor's opinion, right? And pretty much these, this chapter and more about alcoholism. It's deep into medical facts. What's controversial about it? So when Silkworth wrote Doctor's Opinion, he put his medical reputation on the line. Remember, at this time, people said that, the medical profession did not want anything to do with the body. And doctors knew there was something with the body of alcoholics. They just don't want to admit it. They wanted this easier to put us away in the rubber room. And Silkworth came forward and said, boom, it's not just a mental thing, it's a physical thing. So that was a very controversial thing. Same thing when Benjamin Rush did it in the 1700s. So the same thing. He didn't know as deep as Silkworth was, but Silkworth was backing the movement where there's a remedy for alcoholism. Wasn't medical, it's spiritual. So that's not controversial. But his medical view was the alcoholic suffers from this illness of the body. It's very controversial. That's the one thing you got to keep in mind there. And it was a very radical concept. For the previous 100 years, alcoholics were being put in these institutions. So like I said, doctors believe it's just a medical problem. Psychiatric, it mentions in there. That's the branch of the medical profession that deals with the study and diagnosis, treatment, and prevention of mental, emotional, and behavioral disorders. What part of the book is psychiatric? Page 64 to 71. The inventory process is very psychiatric. The part that makes step 4, the inventory psychiatric, is the third column, the effects mind. We call that misdirected instincts. That's where we become aware of how our pride, our self-esteem, our material, that's our pocketbook, our emotional security, sex relations drove our thinking, made us push us in situations. We're totally aware of it. Remember I said before, what you're aware of in life, you can work on. What you're not aware of will control you. And by knowing what drives your thinking, having awareness of drives thinking, we discover where are we to blame, right? Why we get so easy, why fear runs our life, why we judge others. So we discover why we're angry. I couldn't become aware of those instincts by just thinking about them and reading a book or, going to a book study. That's why inventory is a gift. What makes it controversial? Anything asks a person to open themselves up to examination of why they hate other people, or why they fear other people, or why they harm people, or their sexual conduct. demands that demands rigorous honesty is controversial, very controversial, and in the mind's eye of people. Social is the other word he mentioned there, and that's the interactions with an individual. What parts are social? Well, we have a whole chapter called "Working with Others." It's about, social interacting with alcoholics to help them achieve, to get them in the door to sobriety. It doesn't really get too deep into doing the steps, but it gets, breaking the ice stuff. But there's numerous parts that also refer to working with others. It tells us to treat those who are spiritually sick, how to treat those who are spiritually sick. It speaks of gatherings with others in this book, meetings. What part of recovery isn't social? It also goes to look at, there's also the social instinct. I just mentioned the pride, the self-esteem, the personal relations on the fourth step. That's social. How about making amends? It's very social. What makes it controversial? What makes the social part controversial? Because on 14, he tells us we must do this work with others or we die. It's pretty controversial. It's also controversial because many people just don't want to sponsor. Many people don't want to sponsor. Then it says religious. It's a faithful devotion to accept the God or gods or spiritual beings. What parts of the book is considered some as religious or religious ideas? We agnostics in there. And, just about anything else in the first 164 pages. I mean, people say, oh, well, you got to tone down with God talk at the meetings, but the word God is in this book 134 times in the first 164 pages, and that's 62 other words like, creator and father like, great reality, higher power, power greater than myself, greater than himself, power greater than ourselves is in the book as well, and thy, and the thee and thy, and he and him, his, they're all capitalized for a reason. So he uses those words, spiritual. He uses the word spiritual at times because it's less controversial. But what makes religious controversial is the most controversial subject is God. I've attended meetings, like I said, you can't say God in this meeting, but God's the nucleus of this program. People don't want to talk about it because these steps make you face God. The word God is only controversial in the mind's eye. That's all. My grand sponsor used to ask this question, and it's just this rhetorical question: is AA a religion? Well, again, religion is the worshiping of gods or within a person or group. I mean, it looks like church sometimes. There's a gathering, there's a basket being passed. Those something always made me think about, but just open my eyes a little bit on things. So let's go back to the book. Here's a promise. Look what this says. Our very lives as ex-problem drinkers. I didn't know you can become an ex-problem drinker. I didn't know that until I read this book. Our very lives as ex-problem drinkers depend upon our constant thought of others and how we meet their needs. That's very hard for someone who comes from a life of self-centeredness, right? Where I tend mostly to my own thoughts and needs with little concern for others. Now this shift happens where I'm supposed to put others first. Well, God first and others second. But where unselfishness when I'm tending mostly to the needs of others with a lower thought of my own agendas. I believe there's no way you could have constant thought of others. My sponsor said to me when I said that to him, he goes, you're correct. Right now you can't. Transformation must happen. These steps will happen. So before we get into this stuff again, let's do a little review of what we talked about in Docker's opinion. So we're going to look at this. We read step one before we made powers over alcohol. We're not powerless because of people, places, and things. We're not powerless because my car ran out of gas, so the battery died. We're not powerless because we drank too much. We're powerless because we have an allergy to alcohol, the physical part, and the obsession that brings us back to it. And the dash our lives are unmanageable. That's the basically the the insanity of doing that, of picking up despite evidence to the contrary shouldn't. It's also the restless, irritable, and discontentness. But look at this. So you have physical allergy. The physical allergy, when I put the alcohol in my body, it breaks down to acid aldehyde, acetic acid, and goes into the liver. Basically, it pickles it, so to speak. It stays there and it creates alcohol. We don't have the right enzymes to break it down. And that's what physical allergy is. It just, my body doesn't break it down correctly. And I crave more. I could never tell you how much I'm going to drink tonight. That's a pipe dream. And then the malobsession is a reoccurring, persistent idea of drinking that doesn't respond to reason. I'm going to keep picking up despite I know I have this disease of my body that my mind can't shut down once I start drinking. And my problem is this, as alcohol is my solution to my mental problem, my emotional problem, my fears, my aloneness. Many people drink when they get off work to unwind, but they don't lose control once they start. We do. And the problem, powerlessness. And that's what we're looking at right now in this book. We're going to get some deep stuff here. So look what it says. You may have already asked yourself, why is it that all of us became so very open drinking? I just mentioned that. It's not because I drink too much. And doubtless, I mean, that's what I thought it was when I came to AA. I thought alcoholics was someone who drank too much. I'm going to Alcoholics Anonymous off and on for years and didn't know what alcoholic was. The truth was, I wanted to be the alcoholic that I saw in other people, the guys that could go to work and put down when they wanted to. Look what it says here. Doubtless you are curious to discover how and why, in the face of experiment and pain, and to the contrary, we have recovered from a hopeless condition of mind and body. So I spent, years only getting a couple months in, like, here and there. Never got past the third step. As soon as I thought, I had it beat, it would come back. And I would just keep going and going. But I didn't realize is what Bill says in this book, some alcoholics be pretty badly mangled before they finally commence to solve their problems. The more broken I got, the more open-minded I got. And I started realizing there must be something more. And then I started to see people I knew in there getting this and doing this. So if you are an alcoholic, like it says here, if you are an alcoholic who wants to get over it, you may already be asking, here's the question, what do I have to do? How many times have alcoholics said that? Alone, in their room, maybe with a loaded pistol in their hand. Not drunk, dry as can be. Because they know that ball's in front of them, they shouldn't do it, but they're going to do it anyways. And it's not what I have to do after we drink, as we said before. It is the purpose of this book to answer such questions specifically. So it's saying there are going to be very clear answers to that question, very clear answer to that question, what you have to do. Again, most people do not know why they're alcoholics. See, back to the book. See, we shall tell you what we have done before going into a detailed discussion, and maybe well to summarize some points as we see them. How many times people said to us, now, I love this paragraph now, I can laugh at it. Because the people they're referring to are normies. And what's a normie? Someone who can drink normally. Someone who does not have the allergy and the obsession. They have no clue, any of the stuff because they never experienced it. How would they? How would they? My wife has gone to my meetings over, book studies for off and on for years. And for a normal drinker, a normie, she understands the steps very well, but she'll never understand step one. Only a real alcoholic can understand step one. It's impossible. How could you understand step one if you don't have the loss of control? That's why people at meetings who don't have it add on, well, it must be powerless to people, the place and the thing, because that's what they can relate to. They think being powerless is the garbage man knocks over the garbage every week. But again, they have not experienced it. How do you know something? From experience. Anything else is a theory. So they say this stuff. I can take it or leave it alone. Why can't he? They say that because they can do that. That's their program. Look what else they say. Why don't you drink like a gentleman or quit? So if a person swears a lot and a person says speak like a gentleman, they're asking that person to control what they say. Right? On the contrary, if a person says to an alcoholic, drink like a gentleman, they're saying that person, you need to control your drinking. Again, they say that because they can. And maybe that's what got that person sober. That fellow can't handle his liquor. Again, they say that because they can control it. Why don't you drink beer and wine? Remember those days and drinking too much whiskey or whatever it was, and I'm going to try Mad Dog instead. I'm going to switch to something different. I'm going to switch from, Frank the Coke or whatever it is. Again, that works for some people. They can switch brands and all that. Look at this, lay off the hard stuff. Well, it's all hard stuff. His willpower must be weak. So all willpower is weak when it comes to the first strength because of the obsession, but our willpower is strong because of the allergy. So there's a balancing of willpower here. Weak when it comes to the obsession with the first drink, but strong willpower when it comes to the allergy. It's automatically happening. Here's my favorite one. He could stop if he wanted to. That's the cry of the normie right there. I remember watching was it Cops with my father-in-law, and there's this crackhead, and he's like swinging around at people, and he's like fighting 15 people at once, and there's knocking cops down, and they had like 8 cops taking this guy down, and my father-in-law goes, that guy could stop if he wanted to. I'm like, yeah, right. Look what it says next. She's such a sweet girl. I should think he would stop for her sake. You know, how many warnings we get from significant others? If you don't quit, I'm going to leave you. Did it work? There's a lot of husbands and wives that drink together, and one of them quits for good, and the other one can't. We do. That's this disease is no joke. Here's another one. The doctor told him if he drank again, it would kill him, but there he is, all lit up again. This is the one that really mystifies people, you know, because any disease where a doctor tells you stop or you're dead, the patient stops without question. Lose weight or you're dead. You're going to start to try to lose weight. Quit smoking, you're dead. Try to quit smoking. But they're blown away when they walk into that barbecue and there we are lit up again. After they were the one that brought you to the doctor's appointment. Who gave you your death sentence? They're mystified. They're baffled because and their realm of common sense, that's what happens. You think saying like these, you would never hear uttered in the walls of AA or CA or anywhere, but they are. I heard people in meetings, they say all the time, come on, man, you could stop if you wanted to a newcomer. And the newcomer's like, what? "Well, just don't take the first drink and you won't get drunk." Come on. I chose not to drink today. You know, you're just weak-willed, I've heard people say. Because that's what those people can do. Why would they say this stuff? Look what it says. Now, these are commonplace observations on drinkers we hear all the time. Back of them is a world of ignorance and misunderstanding. That ignorance, what is it? I mean, I thought ignorance was stupidity. It's lack of it, or lack of intelligence, stupidity. So ignorance is lack of knowledge, lack of experience. Again, how do you know something from experience? A person with knowledge sees no reason to defend the truth because they have experience. They give short, precise answers. But a person with ignorance, they're going to give these long-winded, based on theory, and they never get to the point, and they don't want to lose an argument. And a person with knowledge is open-minded to new ideas and new avenues. But the ignorant person will continue to argue and debate using misinformation because they never experienced it. And then there's the person with knowledge has freedom. And the person with ignorance, they're restricted. And most important, the person with knowledge knows. The people with ignorance think, they know everything. That's the problem. So it's the illusion of knowledge. But there's an old saying that I remember some guy came up to me and says, you can't be recovered. And I argued with him, and my grand sponsor pulled me aside and we dragged me home. And he says, I'm going to tell you something. Arguing with the ignorant fool creates two ignorant fools. It's so true. I don't argue with people anymore in AA. It doesn't do any good. Even if they come up to me and attack me, I just say, thanks for the information, and shake their hand. That gets them more. That gets them all riled up instead of arguing with them back. Look what this says. Now, these are commonplace observations who drinkers, which we hear all the time. Documents of the world of ignorance and misunderstanding. We see these expressions refer to people whose reactions are very different from others. So the difference in reaction is they can take it or leave it alone, or just quit, walk away, and never use again. Their reaction is very different from us. They do not crave more when they put alcohol in their system. They're ignorant because they do not know what it's like to experience that. They have no clue. Just like my wife. I mentioned that a minute ago. She'll never understand the first step. Now we get to the controversial stuff. This stuff many don't know it. It's right here in the book. And when you come across the word reason here, I'd highly recommend to underline the word reason. Right. And if people, show if people show good reason not to do something, it means they have thought things through. So underline the word. It says moderate drinkers have little trouble in giving up liquor entirely. If they have a good reason, they can take it or leave it alone. I'm going to show the screen again. They can take it or leave it alone. What does that mean? So moderate drinkers, it's the mental part, can stop for a good reason. A good reason might be that someone died of alcoholism they knew, or OD'd in front of them. Perhaps they get sick when they drank, or it burned when they drank it or did that line. They hate the taste. Maybe they're scared straight because they got DUI or arrested. Because they don't know, because they don't have a mental obsession, they can use willpower and self-knowledge to stop and stay stopped for good. Their body's response is they can control their drinking. They don't have the final craving, meaning they have a normal reaction to alcohol. They never want more after they drink. They have a few drinks and don't go any further. They're not powerless. They have human power. They have the ability to solve their problem using human resources, something we don't have. They have human aid because they don't have the allergy obsession. So now we're going to look at, the hard drinker. You could also consider this as the heavy drinker or drunk. Then we have a certain type of hard drinker. He may have may have the habit that badly enough to gradually impair him physically and mentally, which means what happens when people get drunk, especially when you're real young, you start tripping over stuff. You start laughing at stupid stuff. They'll gradually may have the habit of badly enough to gradually, mentally and physically. It may cause them to die a few years before their time. Now, a real alcoholic's life expectancy for a male is around 49 years old, right? A hard drinker male is around 62 years old, 63 years old. Female real alcoholic is around 42, and a hard drinker real alcoholic 50, 55, 56. They start getting health issues. So it may cause them to die a few years before their time. If there's a word reason, for some strong reason, there's that word again. Ill health, falling in love, change in environment, or warning from a doctor becomes operative. This man can stop or moderate, although he may find it difficult and troublesome. He may even need medical attention, so he might go to rehab. So I like to do, they can stop for strong reason, right? So I always do the hard drinkers test, right? And the hard drinkers test is, well, that's my sponsees is, did ill health ever stop you from drinking? And I've never had anyone say, yeah, to this stuff. Or I've had them say a few times, like, but ill health ever stop you from drinking? The falling in love ever stop you from drinking? And the change of environment, moving away from it. We've all tried that. I'm going to move across the state. Well, there's more drugs, more alcohol. Or warning of a doctor. I remember going to the doctor. I was 26 years old, and I don't remember what the physical was for, but he asked me, he just goes out of the blue, did you drink? Do you drink? No, no one ever asked me if that didn't know me if I drank. And he puts his hand on my side and he pushes where my liver is. And I went, ow. And he goes, well, if someone doesn't drink, you're gonna have cirrhosis in about 7 years. All I heard was 7 years. This is a perfect thing I need to hear. Mental can stop for a strong reason. So ill health, falling in love, all that stuff. You can also add DUIs, being arrested, going to prison, divorce, ultimatum from wife or husband, CPS, losing your kids, threats, being fired from the job, bank taking your house, car taking away. How do I know this stuff? Because I hear it mentioned in meetings all the time. My bottom was that I lost my job, or I got threatened to lose my job. We get threatened to lose our job, and then we have to clean up our act a little bit. Probably clean up our act. We shave. We smell better. We're not going to stop drinking. How about these people stay sober by joining a group where you can't drink? All those things stop them. And since they respond to reasons, interventions work. The family says, we're not going to speak to you again. It don't work for alcoholics. It might for a minute. They can use willpower and self-knowledge, humiliation and suffering, and can stop for good because it is within the realm of common sense. The body's response is they don't have phenomenal cravings. They do not go on a run. They can stop when they want to. They can tell you right down to the amount they're going to drink. If they say they're going to have 6 drinks tonight, they'll have 6 drinks. I remember my friend got pulled over years ago, and he's an A guy, and he goes, yeah, I got pulled by the cops once. The cop goes, how much did you drink? I said, I had 1. And the cop looks at him and goes, what? And he goes, then I had another, and another, and another, and another, and another. Exactly what he said to the cops. They're not powerless. They have human power. right? They have human resources, no allergy obsession. Now, I want to point something out to you. It says in this sentence, once having formed the habit, and actually it says they may have the habit badly enough, and Dr. says once having formed the habit. And a habit is this like reoccurring action or established custom that we do regularly, unconsciously. The difference between drinking habit and alcoholism is a mental and physical dependent on alcohol due to this allergy obsession. A person with a drinking habit can stop for strong reason. When a person has a habit and they cannot break it, they are a problem drinker. They have an addiction. Habits can be broken using human resources. Human power, addiction can't. I'm going to read something from this is from Dr. William Duncan Silkworth wrote in a manuscript called Alcoholism as a Manifestation of an Allergy. Here's his description of the hard drinker. Here's what he said. So here's what he said. Normal drinkers drink from choice and not from necessity. They find in alcohol a pleasant stimulation and relief from anxieties. It is not a dominant factor in their lives. If they desire to stop drinking, they can do it without struggle. And if for any reason they decide to swear it off, there is no problem, no struggle, no psychic complications to be met, nothing but the inconvenience and interruption of their casual customs. For one reason or another, he has decided that the reasons to stop drinking are greater than those to continue it. They have no need to lean upon anyone else or anything outside of themselves for support. Alcohol is not a necessity to them. That last sentence in there, they have no need to lean upon anyone else or anything outside of themselves for support. They are their support, right? So let me get to this book is written for the real alcoholic. But what about the real alcoholic? He may start off as a moderate drinker. He may not continue to become a continuous hard drinker. But some stage of drinking career, he begins to lose all control of his consumption once he starts to drink. So real alcoholic, mental, does not respond to reason, to obsession. So we saw the moderate drinker can stop for good reason, hard drinker, strong reason. We don't have reason. Reason doesn't exist for us. It is not because of the obsession. Reoccurring, persistent idea of drinking does not respond to reason and has no choice. Takes an obsession, wipes it all away, steals it from us. Emotion and suffering doesn't stop. There's no defense against it. All desire is crushed by it. Alcohol isn't cunning, baffling, and powerful. The obsession is. Because I'm going to drink and get loaded despite knowing all the consequences involved. I'm going to know how this game ends every time I put it in my body. The hard drinker can stop because it's within the realm of common sense. A real alcoholic, with a real alcoholic, because obsession, there is no common sense. It's out the window, it's gone, right? The body's response all controls our consumption when we start to drink. That's what makes us alcoholic. So think of this control is the power and ability to influence, moves, stop a course of events. Loss control is the inability to stop. Loss means fail. Real alcoholics fail at the power and ability to control their drinking once they start. It's called an allergy because we have an abnormal reaction to a substance. It also calls it phenomenon craving. Powerless. No human power. Lacks human power. We do not have the ability to solve our problems using human resources like these other two did. Because they have the obsession. We have the obsession allergy. Hope is a condition of mind and body. It's possible to solve. So we have a mind that condemns me to drink against my will and a body that condemns me to death. We can't stop when we start. And when we're stopped, we can't stop from starting. It's a physical reaction to alcohol. coupled with this overwhelming desire for more. Overwhelming desire to pick up a drink that makes us an alcoholic, except us from these other drinkers. Let's look at the others one more time. The main thing that stands out to me is good reason, strong reason, no reason. That's us. That's where we are. That's who we are. And you know what? It's a good thing, because many of us in this room, where would we be without defeat? The more I got a deeper understanding of the hard drinker and real alcoholic comparison, I realized that now those people I ran with in the past were like me. I used to believe they were worse than me because I had to blame someone else, and they weren't. Hard drinkers, like I said, they don't crave it when they drink. We crave it. Hard drinkers can stop because of the realm of common sense. Us, we have no common sense. They can choose not to drink. We have no choice. And they respond to reason that we don't. Do hard drinkers go to rehab? Yes. Do they go to AA? Yes. Do they do the steps? Most likely not. Because strong desire not to drink is the basis of recovery. They come into AA and they go to meetings daily. They rely on each other and they huddle in groups and say a few slogans and believe the primary purpose of the day is to stay sober. Meaning they stay sober on a special basis. If they slip and drink again, they come back and say, I haven't gone enough meetings, and it sends the wrong message. They believe people drink again because they stop going to me. Period. But they can stay sober the rest of their life using a model of social recovery. They don't need change anything about themselves just to stay sober. Unlike the alcoholic, we must have personality change sufficient to bring about recovery. And here's the question. Are hard drinkers dangerous? You hear speakers like Chris Raymer and these guys, and it used to be that, the whispers in the corner. Now people are bringing it up a lot, which I think is good. If a alcoholic attempts the hard drinkers program, or you call it program or idea of recovery, social recovery, they could die. That's what makes it dangerous, is the easier, softer ways that we can't do. I've used this analogy before. Hypothetically, let's say we're in a room of 15 people and we're all cancer patients. We're all cancer patients, but one only thinks he has cancer. And they all go around the room talking about their diets they're on, their headaches they get from chemo, how sick they get, and motivate each other. Then it gets the guy who thinks he has cancer, and he goes, this cancer thing's got me whipped pretty good, man, but I can control it. I don't need chemo. I don't need special diets. I don't get it. But then it gets the guy next to him, the last guy to speak, and he goes, you know what? If this guy can do it without chemo, then I can too. Now think about that towards Alcoholics Anonymous. That's what happens. The alcoholic must do the steps and live daily in the freedom of, of step 10, 14, the rest of their lives. Must always continue to improve relationship with God and take that process to other people. That's a must. We must live on a spiritual basis, or else, it says. Or what? Go back to cycle of drinking. We're going to go to the chapter of the wives on page 108, and we're going to look about just a little bit more about these different types of drinkers he's going to mention in here, and this is some good stuff. And I like it because he shows the progression a little bit and different description. All right, page 108. 1, it says, your husband may only be a heavy drinker. His drinking may be constant, or it may be heavy only on certain occasions. Perhaps he spends too much money for liquor and may be slowing him up mentally and physically, but he does not see it. Sometimes he is a source of embarrassment to you and his friends. He is positive he can handle his liquor, that it does him no harm, that drinking is a necessity to his business. Always excuses. He would probably be insulted if you were called an alcoholic. This world is full of people like him. Some will moderate or stop altogether, some will not. Of those who keep on, a good number of them will become true alcoholics, real alcoholics after a while. I've seen that happen. So here's the early stage real alcoholic. Your husband is showing lack of control, for he is unable to stay on the water wagon, means sober, even when he wants to. He often gets entirely out of hand when drinking. He admits this is true, but is positive he will do better. He has begun to try, with or without cooperation, various means of moderating or staying dry. Maybe he is beginning to lose his friends. His business may suffer somewhat. He is worried at times. This is like the early stages of alcoholic. He's becoming aware that he cannot drink like other people. Remember those days? He sometimes drinks in the morning, though through the day also, to hold his nervousness in check. He is remorseful after serious drinking bouts and tells you he wants to stop. But when he gets over the spree, he begins to think once more about how he can drink moderately next time. That's the other reason why we know we're not moderate drinkers, because we tried that. We think this person is in danger. These are earmarks of a real alcoholic. Perhaps he can still tend to his business very well. He has no means, ruined everything. As we say among ourselves, he wants to stop. So here's the later real alcoholic. He is bad, but not way up down. 3, this husband has gone much further than husband number 2. Though he once, like a number of us, became worse, his friends have slipped away, his home is near wrecked, and he cannot hold a position. Maybe the doctor has been called in, and the weary round of sanitariums and hospitals began rehabs and detoxes, right? He admits he cannot drink like other people. He does not see why. He clings to the notion that he will yet find a way to do so. God. He may have come to the point where he desperately wants to stop but cannot. His case presents an additional questions which we shall try to answer for you. You can be quite hopeful of a situation. Here's the later stage real alcoholic. You may have a husband who was in complete despair. He has been placed in one institution after another. He is violent or appears definitely insane when drunk. Sometimes he drinks on the way home from the hospital. Perhaps he has delirium tremens, it's DTs, the shakes. Doctors may shake their heads and advise you to have him committed. Maybe you've already been obliged to put him away. This picture may not be as dark as it looks. Many of our husbands were just as far gone, yet they got well. There is hope. I like the way he breaks those down. Let's go back to 21, and we're going to close with this paragraph. I call it the Jekyll and Hyde paragraph. Here is a fellow who's been puzzling you, especially in his lack of controls. He does absurd and incredible tragic things while drinking. He is a real Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So Dr. Jekyll is this great physician who makes this potion, and it transforms this hideous monster named evil creature named Mr. Hyde with no remorse, no regrets. And he goes on a rampage and terrorizes the streets and his family, his friends. The potion wears off, and he's back at Dr. Jekyll again. And he hears about the stuff he did. He thinks something's wrong. He thinks something's not wrong with himself. He thinks something's wrong with the potion, so he makes the potion stronger and makes him more of a monster. And he turns back and to Jekyll. He's obsessed with getting the potion right. And he knows what's going to happen, but it has the inability not to pick up the potion because the obsession of the mind. And what happens? Mr. Hyde kills Dr. Jekyll. Hyde kills Jekyll. The Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde is a story of addiction, experimentation, denial, attempt to quit, completely insanity. It's a cycle of drinking. The story is written by Robert Louis Stevens, who also wrote Treasure Island. Stevens was a cocaine and alcoholic addict. He was alcohol. And so he'd been trying to beat alcoholism for years. And they gave, and remember I mentioned the history, what they used to, some of the remedies they gave us for alcohol? One of them was cocaine. So they gave him cocaine for his alcoholism. They would dry you out and then they give you cocaine. It was a miracle drug at the time. So he starts writing this love story. And the love story was just supposed to be about a guy that can't control his anger. But then he's writing his love story. He's all spent out on coke. And he took it a step further and he started making it towards this Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde thing. And that's what got the story going. Pretty interesting. Here's a fellow who's been puzzling you, especially in his lack of control. It's allergy. He does absurd, incredible, attractive things while drinking. He's a real Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. He's suddenly mildly intoxicated. He's always more or less insanely drunk. That doesn't mean he's slurred speech and falling over himself. It means he's constantly putting alcohol in the system just to live. Right? His disposition and character, that's his character. While drinking resembles his normal nature, but little. His personality and character. It's not there. He may be one of the finest fellows in the world. Yet let him drink for a day. That's what we do. And he frequently becomes disgustingly, even dangerously antisocial. He has a positive genius for getting stuck at exactly the wrong moment, particularly when some important decision must be made or engagement kept. Dangerously antisocial means violent. We start to harm people. Remember the circles of engulfment from last week. We cannot keep an appointment. Our word is no good, which hurts our family and friends. You relate with that? Think about it. Let's see what else we do. He's often perfectly sensible and well balanced concerning everything except liquor, meaning he's got some common sense but when he's not drinking. But in that respect, he's incredibly dishonest and selfish. This honesty is the act of lying, stealing, cheating, deceiving, and selfishness I already mentioned. Right? Telling what's amount of needs. There's two or chief character defects he's going to mention later in his book. Is it possible for a alcoholic not to be dishonest and selfish? I don't think so. Do you see why they ask us to be rigorously honest and ask us to make amends and to give our rest of our lives working on ourselves and helping others? He often possesses special abilities and skills and aptitudes and has a promising career ahead of him. So did Dr. Jekyll, right? He has special skills and aptitudes and promising career ahead of him, right? He uses his structure, his gift, to develop a bright outlook for his family and himself, and then pulls the structure down his head by selling a series of sprees. Some of you may remember going from rehab or meetings, and families proud of us for the first time. They have this outlook for our future, maybe more than we do. It's a big shadow we have to fill, right? Because our family, everyone's proud of us. That first time we do it, we put we pull the whole structure down by sending a series of sprees, and we need to do the steps. And that family was so proud of us when we went to rehab the first time, and then it happens again, and they get mad at us, and eventually when we graduate rehab, and the next time we see them is we make an amends. That's it. He is a fellow who goes to bed so intoxicated, I'll sleep the clock around. Yet early the next morning, searches madly for the bottle and bag he misplaced the night before. If he can afford it, he may have liquor or dope concealed all over the house. That's why they call it stash, right? To be certain that no one gets his entire supply away from him to throw down the waste pipe. Normal people don't do that. Normal people aren't going to have, a normal drinker, a hard drinker is not going to have liquor concealed all over his house. Because we know what happens when we run out of it. Now he goes deeper and uglier. As matters go worse, he begins using a combination of high-powered sedatives, a little Xanax, Ativan, and liquor to quiet his nerves so he can go to work. Then comes the day he's simply kind of making and he gets drunk all over again. Perhaps this cool doctor shows up. Perhaps this doctor shows up with morphine, maybe a little oxy and fentanyl, dilaudid, Suboxone, or some sedative, maybe some Valium to taper off. Yeah, I remember reading this and I was like, how does this guy know this stuff? Especially the pill part, because I took Dilaudid, you know, take a few, go to bed with alcohol. You know, I would have to wake up in the middle of the night, take 2 or 3 or more to go back to sleep, and take 2 or 3 more with alcohol in the morning to wake up again. Drink all day and take a few more during the day. Maybe, oh, some friend comes by a little speed so I can, you know, it's all day endless cycle. Then I started, then that started to react with the alcohol. Then I started drinking more to bring that stuff down. It's insanity. Then I would start, get caught driving the wrong way on the freeway or the Golden Gate Bridge. No, that didn't happen. Uh, insanity. Then he begins to appear at hospitals and sanitariums, detox and rehabs. Again, how do they know this stuff? See, only a real alcoholic knows what it's like to be defeated by this disease. The hard drinkers, they don't know what's, I mean, they think they know defeat, but not like we do. And only a real alcoholic knows what it's like to reach deep down within to the bottom of the soul to find the strength and power they thought didn't exist. When they thought no power was left. That's the miracle of it. They talk about that. So think about it, be blessed you're a real alcoholic. Don't like sit there and frown upon. Bill says that in his book. We don't want any haters of alcohol because anything that breaks you will make you be put back together again. All right, we're going to stop it right there. We'll be back with more about the obsession next week. Let me go ahead and stop the recording.